Hello friends. After a period of uncertainty with the pandemic and halting IELTS exams in various countries, I'm delighted to tell you that now various test takers have emerged successful from the IELTS exam globally. Normal and very routine question which is asked to me as an IELTS coach is whether the IELTS examiners have become a little more liberal with their grades. My answer is no, especially so in the speaking section. So I, Atul Gulati from Leverage Edu, today in this video will dwell upon how to increase your band in the speaking section from 5 to 7 or 7.5 in just 35 days. IELTS exam tests your English proficiency in 4 sections: listening, reading, writing and speaking. The speaking section is no doubt the most challenging and nerve-wracking. Why so? The spoken language is always more difficult than written language, and we all tend to make grammatical mistakes because while speaking we have less time to think. Let's take the example of 2 students, Afan Mohammed and Bhavya, who took their IELTS exams very recently, hardly a month back. Both of them have done well, got an overall score of 7 band and 7.5 band. But if you would notice, the speaking scores are not good. It's 6 or 6.5. Most of these students come back to us at Leverage to help them improve their speaking scores. Now, how long does it take and how can one improve the scores in the speaking section? Well, there's no one way or one method as such. And as far as the time goes, some research has been done at Cambridge, which shows that to come up from a band 5 to a band 7 in IELTS can take you up to 300 hours of practice. Now, if you are studying from Monday to Friday, let's say for an hour or so every day or 2 hours every day, that means it will take you 5 to 6 months to reach band 7 from band 5. The good news is that we at Leverage Edu have successfully coached hundreds of students to get a band 7.5 and above also in speaking, and mind you, in just 35 days. So let's go one by one with the parts of the speaking section and also with the band descriptors. The band descriptors or the criteria is 1. Fluency, 2. Vocabulary, 3. Grammar and 4. Pronunciation. So part 1 of the speaking test is called small talk. This is when the examiner talks to you about you, yourself, your health, your interests, etc. So you need to be very well aware of current topics. You need to be updated so that you have ideas to talk about. Here, fluency is very important. What is fluency? Well, fluency is the ability to maintain a flow of language without unnatural hesitation. That means you're presenting good ideas with minimal audible pauses and without really repeating, without repetition. If you manage to do so, the examiner will find your answers also interesting and he or she will be able to follow up with them also easily. In part 2, you are given a topic, the examiner gives you a topic for just there you have to speak for about 1 to 2 minutes. You do get a minute to prepare, and during which you can note down some useful, helpful points and also some relevant words. Once you start speaking, the examiner will be silent and will only interrupt you once the time is up. So during this part, since you have to speak for about 1.5 to 2 minutes, grammar plays a very important role. Most of us end up cropping the same grammar mistakes. Let's have a look at some of them. Most of us forget to add an S when we are talking of the person in the present. Let's say, for example, that in part 2, the examiner gives you a topic of talk about a person who has had a great influence on you in your family. You may begin by saying, I'd like to talk about my uncle. He lives in Canada. He works in a bank. So, is this correct? Well, no. I would like to talk about my uncle. He lives in Canada. He works in a bank. Another example, we normally forget to add the ed when we are talking in the past tense. Let's take an example again. Last month, I want to see a film which released recently. However, I finally watched it only yesterday. That's incorrect. Again, last month, I wanted to watch a film desperately which had released recently. However, finally I watched it only yesterday. We normally also tend up using the present instead of the past, especially in part 2. Let's take another example. They might ask you, describe a visit to the museum. And a test taker would say, I'd like to talk about my visit to the museum. I go to the museum. Since it is far from my house, I take a train. So he started off on the wrong foot. Is the grammatical error clear? I'd like to talk about a visit to the museum. I went to the museum about a year back. Since it's further down from my house, I took a train. So these are the few grammatical errors we all have, and we all make them. So we need to correct them, we need to fix them. Another thing to be careful of are the articles. Now what are articles? Articles are determiners which come before a noun. A, an, the, an apple. Remember, articles are normally used for quantity, that is one. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. But it's not only that every time you use a noun, you have to use an article. Plural nouns, for example, don't need articles. Let's say, cats can be big or small. Articles can be used when the speaker and the listener both are in a familiar situation also. The restaurant near our school is awesome. So the speaker and the listener both are aware. Articles are also used before adjectives. I like the new intelligent teacher. So remember to use your articles carefully. Articles can be challenging and very stressful. We must use them in the right way, and we must activate our grammar properly so that we are able to give a very correct and a fluent answer. Remember, the examiner does not appreciate prepared speech. If he or she feels the answer is memorized, they will ask you another question. Let's come to part 3 of the speaking test, which is the last round. In this, the examiner will ask you analytical and abstract questions. They are mostly a follow-up on the part 2 questions. However, you are expected to expand your answers more than you did in part 1, and also you are expected to give lengthy answers and with a lot of clarity. Let's take an example. If the examiner has asked you something about food in part 2, they could say, do you enjoy cooking? You should answer, no, not really. I don't quite like it. I don't have the patience for all the preparation that needs to be done, and neither do I look forward to the cleaning up later. Occasionally, however, when my friends come over the weekend, on the weekend, I do manage to churn out a few simple dishes. So, try to answer in at least 4 sentences so that the examiner is able to judge your speaking skills. In part 3, vocabulary and pronunciation plays an important role. Some words in IELTS which you would notice are not really, I wouldn't say permitted, but let's not try and use them during IELTS exam. Good, bad, so. Let's take an example again. It was good meeting you. Don't you think it's better if we say, it was delightful meeting you. I had a good evening, thank you. Thank you, I had a very pleasant evening with you last night. The pizza was bad. The pizza was awful. The food in the restaurant was so-so. The food in the restaurant was mediocre. So we can use some uncommon words instead of good, bad and so-so. As far as the pronunciation, please have a look at the features of pronunciation, which are word tense, word stress, sentence stress, intonation, chunking. Now pronunciation can drag your score down, so we have to be very careful. We shouldn't say technology, rather we should say technology. We shouldn't say economy, rather we should say economy. So the intonation is equally important, and for improving or practicing the intonation, it is quite wise to copy the rhythm of the native speakers. A good method is choose a recording from the listening script, play it on a low volume, then read it aloud and try to keep the same intonation pattern as the speaker in the script. So this way you will definitely be able to improve your intonation. You should be careful in part 3 to have your own opinion. For this, try to watch news and try to read magazines and journals. Try to understand and listen to the examiner's questions very carefully. Although, in speaking, unlike in the writing section, we can go off topic a bit. So, now that you know all about the speaking exam and the content and the strategies to follow, how do we come up to the band level of from 5 or 6 to 7 and 7.5? Well, when you have a destination, you need a map, you need a compass, right? So, even as far as the IELTS exam goes, let's say even if you're trying to open a Google map, the Google map will ask you your location. So in the IELTS exam, you need to know your location and you need to know your goal. So at Leverage Edu, we will first do a mock test. We will give you a feedback. In the speaking section, you definitely need a mirror, you need a teacher, you need a coach, you need somebody to correct you. So we will give you all your feedback, then we will make you achieve the goal or the desired band you require, because your dream university could ask you to get a minimum of a 7 in each section or a 6.5 also in each section. So we work towards that. Do remember, if the restrictions in your IELTS exams in your town haven't yet ended, please don't shelve your IELTS preparation, for the restrictions are bound. It will end very soon. It's very temporary. So let's continue. You by now realize that preparing for the IELTS does take some time, and we at Leverage Edu are always here to support you in every possible way. For further assistance, or if you wish to look up at our speaking videos, please look up to the speaking video by another faculty member, and also subscribe to our mail or contact us at the numbers. Thank you. All the best.